Say it with me. I am, I can, I ought, I will. Hello and welcome back to The Commonplace. My name is Autumn. I will be your host today. I'm very excited about a number of things. One, we are talking about Charlotte Mason's motto, I am, I can, I ought, I will, which is a hugely helpful tool for children as they're learning to command their wills. Last week over on The Commonplace podcast, we talked about the way of the will. And so today in this video, I'm going to kind of do a complementary way of thinking about the will, training the will, what a mom needs to know. But before we do that, I want to show you something really cool. This is a wonderful book. I don't know if you know about Risen Motherhood. I'm going to link them below, but they are a wonderful ministry that helps moms connect the large truths of the gospel to the ordinary moments of motherhood. And fun fact, I used to work for Risen Motherhood, so I spent a lovely 3 years working with the team over there, which in that time, they launched the first edition of Risen Motherhood, and this is the new one. So let me just show you because it's so beautiful. It's a linen cover, it has this lovely gold foil, and there are also additional chapters in here. So if you have the old copy and have read it many times like myself, there's new stuff in here, including a chapter on income producing work, which I know for many moms who work from home or work on projects from home like I do, that is an interesting thing as you think about how to wisely steward your time, love your family, and then let that spill out into other things. And so I just wanted to tell you guys about this book, not because they made me, but because I still adore them and remember my time there with such fondness, and this is an excellent resource. So there's my plug for the Risen Motherhood book. But today, we are going to talk about Charlotte Mason's motto. Like I said, it is I am, I can, I ought, I will. And a child should be able to use this in a way that helps them choose to do what is right, even if they don't want to, and to avoid doing what's wrong, even if they want to. It's sort of like St. Augustine's ladder. There's steps and forward movement, things they can grab onto. I'm always talking about pegs. This sort of phrase, when your child recites it, when they learn it, when they practice it, when they understand it, actually serves as a tool for them to strengthen their wills. And that's ultimately what we are trying to do as mothers in the early years. So with this phrase, the one thing I really want to pull out at the beginning is that this was a way for Mason to invite a child into real living. So when Mason talks about living anything, living books, living ideas, what she means by that is that they bring about more life. In the mind of a child, in the life of a child, they actually spur a child on towards real living. They learn how to actually move and enjoy and be in God's world in a way that we would say, that's a flourishing life. That's actually enjoying the gifts of God in His world and learning to know Him, see Him, love Him, obey Him, all of those things in the world. Ultimately, to steal from David Hicks, as I often do, we want our children to understand what is good, to know it, to love it, and then to reproduce it. That is truly living. Mason is very clear that not everyone walking around on planet Earth is living. In fact, she thought many people were wounded spiritually, intellectually, and it was causing great problems in society. This was back in the 1890s. But what we want for our children is for them to truly live. And that's not something that just happens without effort. And that's where the way of the will and the way of the reason start to come in. Because a child has a will, but must learn to command it towards goodness. So the thing about children is that they are 100% persons. They are born that way. They have everything they need, generally speaking, to grow and to learn in God's world. However, they are immature persons. And this is a point that is often kind of overlooked in the Charlotte Mason sphere. We love children, right? And we think they're great, and we think they're complete, and we treat them as full persons, or at least we try to. And then we start to think that they are kind of like little Buddhas or something. They know everything. They have all this wisdom inside of them. They should be listened to, and they should decide what they learn at the school table, and they should lead and direct things. No. Children are immature. Their consciences, not supreme authorities on what's right. If you have small children, you know what I mean. But this is surprising to people. A child's will is not naturally strong in the right direction, but we, as mothers, have the duty to help them strengthen it. And that is where something like Mason's motto comes in. I am, I can, I ought, I will. So let's break it down. So when a child actually recites this, there are a number of sentences you could use. You could come up with your own, you could use the various options in parents' review articles or different things that you might find across writers about Mason's pedagogy. But typically, the idea is, I am a child of God. I can do all things in Christ. I ought to do my duty, and I will choose or do what's right. That's the idea that we're giving our children. We're letting them know what the standard is, what they're expected to do, and that they can do it. But with that requires, of course, the help of a mother. And so when you think about the will, what you need to know is it has two friends, one the conscience and one the reason. Now, reason is a bit of a hype girl, a bit of a yes man. So you really need to focus on that conscience so that a child truly understands what's good. Now, there are two characteristics to a conscience, according to Mason. The first is that a child is able to discern between what is good and what is evil. The second is that they're trained to perceive the differences between the two. But how do you do that? That's one of those things that you hear and you're like, yes, that makes sense, but how in the world do I teach that? Because we know that didactically saying things to children all the time usually doesn't land the right way. Remember, nobody likes a rule, everybody likes a story. So when you think about that, you know you have to give your children the very best of things, the best of ideas, which are often in narrative form. And so we say that we give our children the very highest of culture. And we don't mean it in a snobby way. We're not practicing chronological snobbery. We're not practicing elitism. We're actually talking about the very best, the glimpses of glory, the uncommon goodness that does not appear every single day, but has been given to us to enjoy and to know something more about God. So we look at the best music, and we look at the best art, and we read the best stories, and we go to the most beautiful places, and we allow that to form the conscience of our children, gaining both their imagination and their loyalty in the process. And the second thing that we do is that we form the best habits with them. We make what is their norm in life goodness. Does that come easily? No. When Mason talks about how habits make mom's life easy, she doesn't mean that it's easy for mom to train the habits. She means that a household built around goodness and truth and beauty will be pleasant and one day easy for mom. Not at the start. So in that vein, we do those two things. We give them the very best and we train really good habits, and we have to acknowledge that those things will grow. Their conscience, their reason, their understanding of the feast that we're giving them will grow as their intellect grows, like through their education. And so this is a long-term game. Training the will of a child is long-term. If you think you're gonna knock it out in the next week and all of a sudden your children are going to be perfect, let me tell you, not gonna happen. However, if you stay the course, and however imperfectly, as Mason says, you continue to offer your children the very best of things, bring them back to the path of life, of living as God defines it, then you will instruct the way of the will. Now, I have a really special resource. I'm very excited about this. It will only be for Patreon. It will not go in the shop for at least a bit, if ever. And it is all about turning about the way of the will in your house. So I will be the first to say that despite my very best intentions, all my efforts, all my hopes and dreams, sometimes I look around and everyone's wills are off course, including my own. The whole house seems off course. For me, this usually happens after I've been pregnant. 9 months of really intense sickness, lots of hospital stays, usually means that Mary Poppins has been raising my children and we've been living on pretzels. When you get to that point where absolutely everything is terrible, you have to do what I call a house turnabout. You must stop and turn back towards what God calls good. And that is no easy feat, as any mom will tell you when she realizes everything is off course. But I've been working on this guide, looking at your 3 instruments of education, your atmosphere, your discipline, and life, how those help you in forming your home towards goodness. And then I've taken these 4 case studies, which I really enjoyed doing, because a lot of times people will ask me, here's the habit I want, how do I teach it? But my kid is this really specific way, or my kid's really this way. And the thing is, you can't teach the same habit to every child in your home the exact same way because people are different. So I've come up with 4 general types of children: the dutiful, the contrarian, the pity party pal, and the baby. And I've gone through what could be possible heart problems, difficult motivations or wrong motivations, the right motivation, and then practical ways you might train that, and also warnings for mom about what not to do in those situations. And so I think that will help catch the vision for how you might instruct a child towards these good habits while giving them the very best of things so that you can strengthen their will and turn the whole house back to a house of jollification, a fellowship of goodness, which is in fact what the classical tradition shows us is possible. I just had this thing on Instagram recently which seemed to really touch something in the hearts of moms, where I was talking about every so often I get this thought that my children have no idea how good they have it. It is usually when I am reading them some great book and they are sipping tea and eating fresh banana bread from the oven. And I think, you guys have no idea. I was a public school child. And then I think, this is exactly what they deserve. This is their birthright, to know God, to understand His world, to engage with His ideas, and to be nurtured by their parents. I am not doing anything extraordinary when we have a beautiful table of beautiful things filled with happy people around them growing fat souls and learning to delight in God's world. That's extraordinary in so much as God is extraordinary. But what I love about this is that this sort of education, which does meet every part of the image bearer, is for everyone. It's common. It's why we're common moms here. It's why I talk about common blank all the time. Common place, common moms, common kids. It's because this is made for people. It's not that it's some unattainable standard that's just for the very few. This was meant for everyone. And so I hope that's encouraging, that you can turn the way of the will around in your house, that you can help order your house towards goodness, that you can use your instruments of education, that you can actually build a home that the tradition shows us is possible. And I like that because people have been doing it for thousands of years. So there's proof in their pudding. There's not proof in my pudding. I'm a common mom. My kids are young. I'm just passing on the great wisdom of the tradition. And so I hope that encourages you. I will be back next week. I'm going to be talking about kind of a CMEC first term thoughts, what we've learned, what we've liked, what we haven't liked, what we're changing, tips I've picked up on how to keep the house running, the schoolroom running, both of my businesses running, all those sorts of things. And I'm excited to share because I still adore the CMEC. They're amazing. Okay, I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much for being here. Talk to you next time. Oh, and don't forget, there's still 10% off in the Commonplace Market with the code COMMONMOM10 until the 10th. So if you've been eyeing up a guide or anything like that, they're over there. Feel free to use the discount code.